Are you looking to set up fulfillment outside of Amazon FBA? In this video, we walk through how to do an FBM listing, as well as the questions you should ask and the strategies you should deploy if you're setting up your own warehouse or your own 3PL. Let's go.
I've built and led multiple seven-figure Amazon brands. Now, I'm setting out to share how I did it, with radically transparent and detailed weekly videos. Join the journey with me and break free. Welcome to Heist.
What is up, guys? Welcome to Heist, the channel that is all things Amazon FBA, but in today's video, all things Amazon FBM. In my last video, I talked about the pending challenges related to the spike in Q4 demand and the strain on the e-commerce operational fulfillment infrastructure throughout the US. In particular, as more people drive to spend money online in Q4, Amazon is a major choice for people to do their online shopping. And frankly, there is strains and stresses on the warehousing, trucking, transportation, and delivery infrastructure within Amazon that could get strained beyond the ability to take in all that demand. For you as a seller, what that means is critical timelines for shipping in Q4 in the month of December may be tremendously difficult for Amazon to keep up with, and it may impact your listing, your product, and your ability to capitalize on sales for customers during this critical period. So in the last video, we talked about setting up a 3PL or backup warehouse strategy in order to have a backdrop to being able to fulfill on potential demand, assuming that there may be some challenges with the Amazon infrastructure in Q4. So this video today is all about how to execute on that, how to set up an FBM or fulfillment by merchant listing within your Amazon Seller Central account, the key things that you need to keep in mind when you do that, as well as the risk associated with it, why you would do it in the first place, and then ultimately in terms of how you select, identify, and question potential warehouses and 3PL providers so that you can seamlessly execute on this strategy. So we're going to go from a world where we're used to shipping an inventory to Amazon. In the FBA world, they pick, pack, and ship it. They send out tracking information on the shipping. If there's issues with the shipping, they deal with all the customer service, to a world of FBM or fulfilled by merchant, where we list the product much like we do today on Amazon and rank it much like we do today, with everything but the Prime badge not being there. But what does change is all the back end stuff. So you're responsible for pick, packing, and shipping it, for storing it, for getting tracking numbers, and managing any returns or customer service related to that FBM shipment. So stick around, guys. We're going to cover all the things that you need to know, lock it down so you are well prepared in Q4 or even beyond to have a really key strategic element in terms of FBM listings for your Amazon business. Let's start by why you would use FBM in the first place. Okay, so the impetus for this video is really around this Q4 risk, but generally speaking, there's always the potential to have some element of stockout risk or check-in risk for your FBA business, which is the core part of our strategy as Amazon sellers. That means that you may run out of stock, and before you can get it back into Amazon, you have this period where your listing goes down and you lose rank juice and you lose all those critical things related to organic rank that help you as a seller capitalize on sales. There's also additional risk when you go out of stock of having hijackers and other nefarious characters that we all hate dealing with jumping on your listing and capitalizing on that missed inventory gap. This is going to be exacerbated in this world where we've got massive demand for e-commerce and Amazon in general, and there's a little bit more time for them to catch up in terms of employees, warehouse space, trucking infrastructure within the US to capitalize on that. So even if you've got the inventory in the US and you've got it waiting to get checked into Amazon, you could be 2, 3, 4+ weeks without being able to actually get it checked into FBA. So you can flip over in these scenarios to the FBM listing and capitalize on any moments in time where you've got inventory in the US, but you're unable to check it in a timely fashion into an Amazon FBA warehouse. So that's the critical reason why I set it up and many sellers set up an FBM listing. Another thing that was exposed in the spring of this year with enhanced COVID demand and the restrictions that Amazon placed on which goods they would fulfill, and they basically made it essential goods only, Q4 and other moments in time as we move forward in this new world where e-commerce is driving consumer shopping behavior, that could happen again. So this idea of prime shipping really has not happened in 2020. You place an order with Amazon, and depending on their ability to fulfill on it, it could be 1, 2. We've even seen 30-day ship times from Amazon FBA to get that product out to end consumers. So what happens in that case where your ship date is way too far out, which is really, really critical in December? Let's say somebody goes on to your listing and the FBA fulfillment time on December 7th is December 28th when they're going to get the product. They may not buy your product just because of that date. So what you can do in those situations is you can lower your price a little bit below what your FBA listing is, and then the algorithm is going to give the buy box to your FBM listing, which you control, you ship out, and you manage with your warehouse or 3PL provider. And in many cases, you can beat that date that Amazon can't because you control the warehouse, you control how fast it gets picked, packed, and shipped, and how fast it gets out to customers. So it's critical for when those dates are longer than when you can provide with your FBM. You can flip over to an FBM listing and capitalize on that sale. Another reason is multi-pack bundles. So you cannot easily do this unless you create custom packaging and custom ASINs and SKUs, which is difficult when you're shipping directly from China or a foreign country into Amazon warehouses. But in this world, you can do the equivalent of almost a virtual bundle, but they just put 2 in one box. So you can do 2 packs, 3 packs, 4 packs, other things that can increase the average order volume for a Amazon shopper on your listing. Next is non-Amazon channels. I think that we've all driven our strategies around Amazon, rightfully so. It's a massive behemoth, highly scalable. It takes a lot of the work off of our shoulders when we're selling on the Amazon platform. However, to diversify income, standing up your own Shopify page, selling on Pinterest, selling on eBay, Walmart.com is a big one. There's words and rumblings of Instagram and Facebook having their own e-commerce platform in 2021 and beyond. Having a structure where you've got inventory not just at Amazon, but within a network that you can harness and control unlocks the ability for you to start selling and reaching out with your strategy to get product distributed through these other e-commerce channels. And you can tap into that fulfillment network that you set up as a part of this. And then finally, customer info and reviews. One of the major drawbacks of Amazon FBA and I guess benefits is that Amazon handles all of the customer interactions and things that you would do regarding the fulfillment and communication of the order. But by doing so, they have access to all of the customer information, the name, the address, any back and forth interactions on the customer service standpoint. They are the ones that are interfacing. In an FBM listing, you get the first name, last name, and address of the person or persons that you're shipping your order to. You can harness this information down the line for future marketing efforts, for Facebook retargeting and Google retargeting and other elements that can build your audience and build your ability to market your products down the line. Additionally, if customers have a question or an issue, they're interacting with you. They're not interacting with Amazon. So let's say that they have an issue with their shipment or they have an issue upon receipt of the product. You may be the person or persons that are directly interacting with that customer. You're able to solve the problem and turn those experiences into positive experiences and positive reviews, which an Amazon associate or customer service person just isn't motivated to and will be unlikely to turn that into a positive experience for your brand. Okay, so with that, before we get into my computer and show you how to set one of these up, which we're going to do in a second, here are some very, very critical points to consider, because it's not without risk and it's not without some critical strategic elements you need to think about related to FBM. The first is you are responsible, your brand, your Amazon account is responsible for all of the fulfillment obligations that are set up with an FBM listing. So you set a ship by date, which gives you a certain number of days to actually pick, pack, and ship the product out of your warehouse. Typically the default is 2 days for that, but you can extend that if you need more time. If you miss that date and you miss that date too many times, you can have your Amazon selling privileges deactivated. So the stakes are really, really high. In addition, from the point that it is actually picked up and shipped, you have 7 days after that deadline to get it to the customer's actual place of residence or wherever they wanted it shipped. If you miss that ship delivery date, similarly, If you miss it enough times, you can have your account deactivated. And finally, if too many people cancel orders in advance of it actually shipping, or you cancel the orders yourself, again, it's a health metric within FBM and your seller account that your account can be deactivated. So the stakes are high if you don't have this really dialed, if you don't have a key partner, if you don't have an ability to update all these critical pieces of information for these orders within your Seller Central account, you can compromise your entire business. Second, you've got to have a quantity sync. So within FBM, because it's not in Amazon's warehouse, which is all automated, they know where inventory is, they know how many are left, they know what's available to sell. You are responsible for all of those numbers within your FBM listing. So if you put too high of a quantity in there, or you're not properly syncing up with your warehouse on how much is left to sell, and you oversell and then have to cancel those orders because the product's not available, you can again deactivate your account, and it could have a massive negative impact if you aren't managing your inventory levels. This is critically important if you're not only selling on FBM, but you're selling on Shopify, on Etsy, on Walmart, and are using the same warehouse, same inventory for that. If you don't have syncs across all of those different channels, including Amazon, you're not going to have the appropriate inventory levels, and it could compromise your Amazon account. So you got to be very, very diligent and very careful about this. And then again, I mentioned the pre-cancel rate. If you oversell or too many customers cancel before the order is actually shipped, it's a health metric that can compromise your account. So with that, let's get to the fun part. Let's dive into my computer and show you how to set up from scratch, step by step, over my shoulder, an FBM listing within your Seller Central account. Okay, so you want to get into your Seller Central account to set up an FBM listing. And the first step that you're going to want to do is copy the ASIN that you're actually looking to add an additional FBM listing to. And then you're going to come in here and go to add products. So this is very similar to setting up a new product, except instead of setting one up from scratch, what you're going to want to do here is copy in the ASIN into the find your product on Amazon field. And this is actually a product that I want to add. And so we're setting this up real time in my account because I was going to do it anyway. So this is the ASIN. Again, you've got the create a new listing button here, which we're not going to do since we're actually working on this one. And we're going to want to go to sell this in new condition. And then we want to sell this product is the button we want to select. And then you're going to enter a setup screen here. And so I like to go to the advanced view. So the first field here is this seller SKU. And what I like to do is copy the exact same SKU as the FBA listing, which in my case, I use a descriptor of the color of this product as well as the UPC number. So that's just our naming convention. But then instead of just keeping that, I add an FBM to the back. So each of my FBM SKUs have their own SKU naming convention where there's FBM at the end. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that here, copy that in, and then just put FBM at the end. The price I keep the same, generally speaking. So this product's $130, I think, right now. The shipping template, which you can set up in the top right of your Seller Central account, you can go to settings and then down to ship settings, and you can set up custom time ranges and pricing for all of your shipping. I like to align with Prime shipping, so I like to put free standard shipping for FBM listings. And so we've got a free standard shipping tier that we've set up. If your dates are getting shipped out later, or there's any other custom elements or pricing you want to put in here, you can create a shipping template and select it from this drop down. Sale price, all this stuff I leave alone. MSRP I think is $149, so I leave that the same. Condition is going to be new. Max order quantity you can put in here. This is really critical, this handle time. If you go to the question mark, it says indicate the time in days between when you receive an order and when you can ship the item. So you're going to want to really align with your 3PL on what the service level agreement here is. It's going to default to 5 days, which means that from the time an order comes in, you have 5 days to ship it out of the warehouse and put a tracking number within Seller Central for the customer. If you miss that date, it's going to ding you. And if you miss that date too many times, your account health can get such that they will actually deactivate your account. So make sure that whatever this date is that you're willing to be able to commit to getting a tracking number uploaded. And you're going to want to pay attention to your account daily and just make sure that you don't have any of these orders that are slipping outside of that time range, especially if we're entering the melee of Q4 or December shipping. leave all this offering stuff late or delayed here. And then you just select here, I will ship this item myself, merchant fulfilled. Boom. Hit save and finish. And there we go. And then within usually about 10 minutes, you'll see it in your catalog, certainly within 24 hours. So we now have an FBM listing set up for this, and we can plug in quantity once it's available and sync that up with our 3PL provider, and we are ready to rock and roll. Okay, so once you come into your Seller Central account, if you want to look at where your FBM orders are and what's happening with them, you can come into this orders, manage orders drop-down menu. It's going to show you by default your FBA orders to start. So what you want to do is click here on the view seller fulfilled orders if you want to see what's going on with seller fulfilled orders. And you'll see here that I've got 23 orders that are in here that are FBM or seller fulfilled. And here is critical information. And we talked about it at the critical elements at the start of this video. There's this new column here within your seller fulfilled orders that will show the ship by date. So that basically means that this needs to leave our warehouse with a tracking number by, in this case, September 10th. And today it is September 4th, so I've got a little bit of time here. I think we set the default to 6 days on this. And then it's got until September 15th to September 18th to deliver to the customer. So 1 week after your date is that you set up for when you commit to getting it out of your warehouse, it's got to get to the customer's door. So in the heat of battle, when we're talking about Q4, there's shipping time delays, things like that. You need to be razor focused on these dates to make sure you don't slip. If you do see them slip, you should go into your back end shipping settings, or you should work with your 3PL to make sure that you make those adjustments on handle time and pickup time so that they're clearly associated and you're able to commit to what they are. Now we're going to get into how to find and source and the questions that you should ask for these 3PL providers. Okay, so now that we have the FBM listing created, the fun part is also making sure that we have the operational process and partner behind the scenes, whether it's your own warehouse or a third-party logistics provider or 3PL, able to execute on these orders that come through your FBM listing. So some critical things to think about. First is fees. You need to know if you're using a 3PL facility as an example, it's not as cut and dry as just hey, I'm going to charge you $4 to pick back and ship it and a little bit to store. There's check-in fees for your raw inventory. There's check-out fees. There's palletization fees. There's storage fees that could escalate during Q4, and they could be 4 or 5 times the amount that they would be in other months of the year, similar to Amazon. You could have minimums that you need to meet. So your fee structure may be dramatically higher if you hit certain minimum thresholds, but if you maximize the amount of transactions, those fees could go down. So you have to have a really deep understanding of all of the fees that go into this. You should be running some calculations, and you should be looking at fine print and evaluating what those expenses are. Also important is that some of this stuff may be negotiable. You never know until you ask. I always like to ask the question. The worst that they could say is no. So if you've got some structural fees that you don't like or you want to see lowered or adjusted, speak with your account rep. They are salespeople at these 3PLs. They want your business, and use that to your advantage to try to negotiate the rates and elements that are optimized for your expenses of your business. Also, a critical point, and this is kind of a deal breaker. If the 3PL or warehouse facility does not have experience doing FBM or Amazon fulfillment, don't go with them. Even more than that, if they say they have experience, you want to know, hey, can you add them as access points within your Seller Central account to drive a lot of the data that's needed, a lot of the updates, and a lot of the critical tracking information? Do they have software that will update inventory feeds, automate tracking numbers, all of those things that are critical to execute on the logistics of an FBM order? If they don't, and if you haven't validated them, do not risk it. As I mentioned at the outset, if you miss tracking numbers, if you miss deadlines, if you don't update your inventory queues and feeds appropriately, you could deactivate your Amazon account. So you've got to have somebody with experience as well as data chops to be able to update all those things within your Amazon account so that things run fluidly. Also, if you're using Shopify or other channels, you want to make sure that they have an omni-channel sync so that they can coordinate the inventory and logistics across orders on multiple platforms, including Amazon. You should also have SLAs or service level agreements. I make sure that we add this to every contract with every logistics, warehouse, or 3PL partner that we engage with. You want to make sure that they have minimum commitments on how quickly they will pick, pack, and ship product, that they have commitments on updating the shipping information, and that they have commitments on making sure that the inventory feeds are accurate. If they miss the pick, pack, or ship date that is part of your commitment with the FBM listing, they don't get in trouble, you do, and your business does. So unless there's some teeth in the contract where there's very strict outlines on what they're committing to and associated penalties and fees if they don't meet that, I wouldn't do a contract with the third-party provider unless that was in place. You also want to understand their rate cards with various carriers. Again, we could be in a spot where USPS, FedEx, UPS, DHL, even some localized ground carriers, at any moment in time, one could be faster than the other. You want to have a partner that has deep relationships with multiple carriers so that depending on the environment that we're in, depending on the cost and expense that you're comfortable with paying, that you can execute using bulk buying power from a 3PL that has rate cards across all those different carriers that you can tap into so that you don't have to have individual relationships with each and every one of them. You also want to understand what your backup plan is. Again, I anticipate that you not only need a backup to FBA, you also need a backup to the backup. So have in your mind, even if it's a finite amount of your inventory, say 20%, maybe in a secondary partner that you use mainly for storage, let's say, but you can also tap them if your first 3PL or core 3PL goes down or there's any other issues, you can then call on them to fill those gaps. I think it's critically important to have those backups. So that is it, guys. We're entering a new world territory. It's a little bit more work. It's a little less passive than the FBA system, but I think that these growing pains, while we're being forced to do it to manage risk, in the long term is going to have a massive benefit for many sellers. It's going to unlock the possibility for omni-channel opportunities outside of Amazon. It's going to get your operational capabilities and skill sets in line, and it's going to make your business way more valuable to sell when you've gone through, established the processes, established the partners, and bolted on all of these key strategies into your business. It's more valuable, you're a better business owner, and you have a better business, not just a better Amazon business. Next week, we're going to get back to external ads, so be sure to chime in. We're going to get into Pinterest ads, so subscribe if you haven't already. If you guys have other ideas, other partners, other concepts that I didn't cover that are working for you, help the Heist community and leave those comments down below. We'll see you next week, guys. Cheers.
I am a fighter.